When our anxiety is up to here, what does somebody telling you to relax do? It makes you go, Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Elizabeth, also known as Nurse Sabe, here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. All the links will be in the bio for those, and if you want to give this video a thumbs up and a comment and subscribe, whatever you feel like doing, just so happy to have you here. And today's video is going to be one about managing anxiety in pregnancy and in your laboring process. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into things. I'm going to talk a little bit about anxiety during your pregnancy, things that you can do if you're feeling particularly anxious to help combat that. Now, a lot of us are aware of postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, postpartum rage, postpartum OCD, right? The key phrase in there being postpartum. But those actually fall under an umbrella of something called perinatal mood and anxiety disorders. You can develop anxiety during the pregnancy. It's not just isolated to the postpartum period. So if you, in your day-to-day life, feel like depression or anxiety is overwhelming you, it is making it hard for you to function in your day-to-day tasks, it's making you feel like you can't enjoy the things that you used to enjoy, then this video is gonna have some helpful tips. But the other piece of the puzzle is that I definitely want you to talk with your provider. I want you to ask them about counseling perhaps, talk about medications that can be helpful in managing these feelings, because we should not have to feel like this during our pregnancies. Our pregnancies hopefully are going to be a joyful time, but at least they shouldn't be so riddled with anxiety that you're having difficulty sleeping and difficulty taking care of yourself. If you're feeling that way, my heart truly goes out to you. Please know that you're not alone. Please know that it is not your fault. And please know that there are people and resources to help you. And I will link some of those resources down below. The good news is there are many medications that are relatively safe to take during pregnancy, and we know that you feeling secure, not depressed, and not anxious during your pregnancy is actually going to help translate into a better postpartum period as well. So these things are going to go hand in hand. It also can be normal to feel a little bit anxious when you're thinking about your pregnancy, when you're thinking about birth and delivery, and so I want to give you some tips to manage those moments of anxiety in your day-to-day life. We know that moving our bodies, exercising, does wonders for our mental health and does wonders for anxiety. So that is something that I encourage you to do, and that's even going to translate into your labor, as we know that when we incorporate some moderate exercise into our pregnancies, we can have easier labors and decrease the risk of pregnancy complications like gestational diabetes, preeclampsia. Listening to guided meditations and birth affirmations can be super helpful in pregnancy. And one thing you can even look into is prenatal yoga that is going to combine these birth affirmations and some exercise together during your pregnancy. The other thing that I really encourage you to do is to take a childbirth class. So we have this whole cycle. It's the fear, tension, pain cycle. If we're fearful of something, we're gonna be more tense. It's gonna make it more painful, and around and around and around we go. One way that you can work to interrupt that cycle is by learning about birth. And I encourage you to learn about the birth that you were hoping for, and also learn about all of the other births and all of the other options as well. Taking a really comprehensive childbirth class is going to be beneficial. That way, if things aren't going exactly as you would have planned, you are still going to be exposed to some of the other options that might be presented to you in the moment. When you're in that childbirth education class, my hope and my goal for you is that you are going to learn about a whole host of coping strategies. I have a whole playlist on coping strategies that we can utilize in labor and birth. And so you're going to create this labor toolbox that is chock full of things. And so you're going to go through it and use what's working until it doesn't work anymore, or you try something out and you don't like it, and you still have options and things to pick from. Now, particularly if you can join an in-person childbirth class or an in-person yoga class or something that's in person with other people who are going through the same thing as you, that can be really helpful to kind of talk out and talk through some of your anxieties and some of your fears surrounding birth. And again, reminding you that you are not alone in this process. I also encourage you to listen to positive birth stories. There are a whole bunch of podcasts, I can leave a few linked down below, that can be helpful. You can pick ones that align with the kind of birth that you're hoping to have, or you can listen to some that align with a birth that maybe is not exactly what you're planning for, if that feels comfortable to you. Skipping ahead to labor, to birth. In the laboring process, our bodies are designed to keep us safe. So if we are feeling stressed and pressed, we're getting a big old catecholamine release, adrenaline is being released, we are fight or flighting, it is going to dampen our labor hormones. We are operating in the mammalian part of our brain that is just focused on keeping us alive and keeping our baby alive. So if we don't feel safe, we can actually shut our labor down or shut down the hormones that are helping make our labor more tolerable and easier to get through. Now, the good news is most of the time we are not in danger in labor, but because a lot of us have never been patients before, we've never been in a hospital before, we've never had a baby before, all of that can feel dangerous to us. So we're having this mammalian response, this stress response to something that is not necessarily unsafe. So what can we do in the moment to help bring down that stress and help increase our other hormones that are helping to make our labor progress, like the oxytocin, the prostaglandins, the melatonin, and also helping make it easier for us to cope with those labor contractions, like the endorphins that your body is giving you.
Exercise gives you endorphins. Endorphins make you happy. Happy people just don't shoot their husbands.
All of the tips and tricks that I'm going to tell you are ways that we can really help decrease adrenaline, decrease anxiety in labor, especially if you're starting to feel like you're getting to the point where you're not coping well and we need to kind of reset things. One of the things that can be so helpful to do if you're feeling stressed and pressed, put away the clocks. I know we get really focused on timing our contractions, and that can be a job for your partner potentially, but I don't want you to be staring at a clock, looking at a clock, paying attention to a clock. If you go into most hospital labor rooms, you'll notice that the clock is like back behind the bed, and that is because we don't want that to be something that you're focusing on. We want you to be getting in the groove of things. I want you to just focus on each contraction as that's what we're dealing with right now, and try not to look ahead. Try not to focus on how long you've been doing this and how much longer you could have to go. Because in reality, we don't know exactly how long labor is going to take. We have estimates, we have approximations based on averages of other people, but we don't know what your unique journey and story is going to look like. So what you're going to do is just focus on the contraction that's right in front of you. And maybe you don't want to call it a contraction, maybe you want to call it a surge or a wave, and maybe give it some different language that feels less negative, but still powerful. A contraction is power that your body is exerting to help birth your baby. And these contractions, these waves, these surges, they cannot be stronger than you because they are you. So when you feel a contraction coming, I want you to do a few things. I want you to soften your body. I want you to welcome that contraction. And what that's going to look like is you feel it coming, you're going to take a deep breath in and let it go out. And just drop your shoulders, relax your jaw, and either verbalizing out loud or in your head, you're going to say, oh my gosh, so excited for this contraction, so ready for this contraction, I can do it. Even if you're not feeling that way, you're going to trick your brain. And if you say, I can do this, guess what? Everyone in the room is going to echo back to you. You can do this, you are doing this, you're doing amazing. So we're going to try and trick our brain. And a lot of these hacks during labor, if you're starting to feel anxious, are all about tricking your brain, kind of disrupting that sympathetic nervous system response and helping us get back into the rest and digest. You might also find guided birth meditations to be very helpful. You can look these up and they're often found like on YouTube. Just make sure that you are subscribed to a premium membership for that month because you don't want your really pleasant, calming, guided meditation to be interrupted by an ad. That is in no way relaxing. That is in no way bringing down our anxieties. For the people in the room with you, avoid using the word relax because when our anxiety is up to here, what does somebody telling you to relax do? It makes you go, and it gets even higher. So we have some words that we can use instead of relax, and I have really been working on switching up my vocab myself. It doesn't always come naturally, but we can soften our jaw. We can release the tension in our shoulders. We can open our palms and wiggle our fingers. We can take a nice deep breath in and breathe with me. Speaking of breath work, we have a wonderful breath that is perfect for anxiety that I encourage you to practice in your pregnancy. You might use it in labor. You will definitely use it at postpartum when that baby is making you go all bajiggity and not going to sleep and you're feeling just so overwhelmed. And it is called box breathing. With box breathing, we're going to utilize breathing and holding our breath in 4-second increments to kind of create a box, and we are going to be doing our breathing primarily through our nose if we're able to. This is going to help stimulate our parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest, to bring us down from that fight or flight response. This can be helpful if something is happening in your labor that you weren't expecting. Maybe you're pivoting to a cesarean birth that you weren't planning. Maybe you are just sitting up for an epidural and you're finding yourself having a really hard time relaxing. You might find doing this during the contraction is helpful. I have found most people, if they're feeling really, really anxious and stressed, we do it in between the contractions. I'm going to demonstrate one for you, 1 cycle of 4, but then what you will do is actually do 4 cycles of this, all with nose breathing. So 4 is all around. You're going to go ahead and take a breath in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, then hold, 2, 3, 4, and you're going to repeat that 4 times. Another way that if you are feeling very anxious in labor or feeling really stressed, that we can interrupt that nervous system pathway and kind of shock the vagus nerve is by doing cold compress, icy cold compress, either right here on the chest or on the back of the neck. You notice a lot of people actually like this in transition, and I think that's why, because it does help interrupt that stress pathway, and also you tend to feel a little bit hot. Support people, one of the first things that I will encourage you to do when you guys show up to labor, especially if you're in active, strong labor, there's probably gonna be a pink bin somewhere in the room. Go fill that up with ice and a little bit of water and get some washcloths and put it in it. Another one that is great for if you are having an anxiety or a panic attack in real life, but also can be utilized in labor, both for its ability to reduce stress and also to bring saliva to the mouth if you've been doing a lot of mouth breathing, your mouth is feeling dry, and also to just give you a little sugar burst, is actually sour candy. So with the research that's been done, it's been done primarily on warheads, which are a very, very sour candy. Honestly, just talking about them makes me salivate right now. Sucking on a warhead, or if that feels too intense, maybe some of the apple Jolly Ranchers that are still nice and tart, bringing you out of the panic because you're focused on this sour sensation, potentially also helping if you're feeling nauseated, that you're not eating and drinking something, but sucking on a little bit of hard candy. Also, if people are breathing in the room and their breath is stinky, now we can hand them some of that sour candy. Essential oils are another thing that we actually have some evidence to support can help bring down anxiety in the laboring process. Lavender is going to be one that you hear as kind of a go-to. I would not encourage you to diffuse in labor because I think that that can be disruptive. If there's a big smell that's in the whole room, we can't turn it off if we don't want it anymore and make it go away. So instead, bring us some essential oils and a little Ziploc baggie or an old medicine container with some cotton balls in it, and that way you can take it out, smell it, relax a little bit with it, put the top on, and be good to go. Music is another thing that has been shown to reduce anxiety for you in labor. Just like when we're talking about birth guided meditation, definitely make sure if you are using a streaming service that you upgrade to a premium membership so that you're not getting ads. You might like something that is culturally significant to you, something that you really like, something that is a little bit more repetitive, that there's a little bit more of a rhythm and a ritual to that. You might like something that is almost sedative in nature. So have a couple of different playlists ready to go for labor, and maybe one of those will speak to you. To help with labor, I like to listen to the same song on repeat. So you might not even need to use one of these playlists. You might just want the same thing over and over again to really give you that ritual and that rhythm and repetition. I hope that this video was helpful for you. Definitely let me know below if you have any other tips for anxiety, for stress in labor, things that worked for you. And until next time, bye guys!